Let's go ahead and put our hands together for Chris Miller with his story, My Week Without Brubeck.
Okay, let's fix this rug. Yes, way to go. Just kidding. So, Brubeck is a very special dog. He's not like other dogs. He can't run more than 10 or 20 yards without collapsing. He gets out of breath really easily. He's very undog-like. He doesn't have dog-like instincts. He can't find his way home. He has no prey drive, but I love him. You see, he was born with a litter of Alaskan Husky puppies with a condition called megaesophagus, which forces the vocal muscles and the throat muscles to clench up, making the dogs difficult for them to breathe sometimes, difficult to digest food when they're puppies. He doesn't bark. He has a hoarse whimpering sound. So unfortunately, we learned about this condition after most of his litter mates had already died. They basically just collapsed when they were puppies. So when we figured out what Brubeck had, I built him a device called a Bailey chair, which is like a high chair for dogs. He sits upright in it. I feed him, hand feed him. It takes him 20 minutes or so to digest his food, because with megaesophagus, the dogs can't digest their food and they throw it up a lot. And even to this day, if Brubeck gets in a stressful situation, he throws up. He collapses. I've had to give him CPR on more than one occasion. It's very, very stressful. But again, being that I hand-raised him, figured out his condition, fed him by hand for so many months, and probably his first 2 years of life, I'm very attached to him. He's like a kid. You know, I do have a daughter, but I know there are crazy animal people who equate their animal pets with humans, you know, and with their own kids. But I do look at him as like one of my children. And so last year, when he was lost 45 miles from home, I was very, very upset. I was beside myself. You see, last year I made some life changes. I left my current living situation. We filed for divorce, and I wasn't quite ready to bring my dogs with me because I was temporarily staying at my mom's, which happened to be 45 miles from where I was living in Portage County. And someone brought him to my mom's house a little too early, tied him to the light post, and I found a leash and an empty collar. Thus began a 1-week odyssey. And I took time off of work. That became my job, looking for Brubeck. The first 2 days, I made flyers. I canvassed the neighborhoods like a politician, handing a flyer to everyone I saw. I kept my eyes open. I drove around most days and into the night. And at about day 3, my hope had started to wane. You see, hope is a very interesting thing. It can lift you up and fill you up like a balloon to where you're lighter than air, and you feel like the world is beneath you and everything is going your way. And in just an instant, hope can also deflate you to where you're just floating near the floor, like the end of a party, streamers on the floor, spilled drinks, and the balloon just barely standing upright. And at that point, my hope had deflated, of course. And it had been a couple days, and someone asked me, hey, why don't you post this on social media? And I really kicked myself because I run a website that relies solely on social media for marketing. But I didn't think of social media in that way. You see, before this situation, I thought of social media as a place where, of course, you can market a product, and it's also a place where people portray different personas, usually than who they really are. A place for vanity, a place for self-gratification. But I learned after this situation that you can also bring communities together through social media in ways I never could have imagined. Day 3, I posted the ad. It was basically just my picture that I was handing out to people, and immediately started getting texts and calls. It was amazing. So a lady called, and she lived right down the street from my mom, and said, yeah, Brubeck was in the backyard trying to play with my kids. And I'm like, well, what are they playing, badminton? What are they doing back there? But every time someone got close to him, he ran off. You know, the reports that came in were Mainly people had seen him from afar or were afraid to approach him. You see, being that he's an Alaskan Husky, he looks like a wild animal. He looks like a coyote. His eyes are different colors, 2 different colors. He looks kind of like a mixed coyote wolf type of dog. So I think a lot of people were afraid to approach him. So day 3 started off with a bang and ended with that balloon hovering near the floor, because once again I went back home without my dog. And every day that I left that area, I felt like I was letting him down. I felt like I was leaving a child behind. So day 4 comes, and I looked the whole day. I started the day optimistic. I started where someone had spotted him the day before. So I just felt like I was a day behind him. And much like a detective, I would find his last known location, call it up on my phone, and triangulate and just drive in circles from that one spot where he was last seen. In fact, in like 3 days, I drove 600 miles just in a 2-mile area, 3-mile area. And this is southern Summit County, Canal Fulton. Farm, rural. I mean, a lot of wildlife, a lot of forests, and Huskies love wild. They love the forest. So I knew he was going to gravitate toward wooded areas, towards secluded areas. And I wondered, who's going to revive him when he collapses? If he can't even run 10, 20 yards, he's been out for days at this point. So day 4, I had all but given up, for the day, and I was a little just down, depressed, and right before I was ready to call it a day, I saw these 2 girls walking, and I handed them a paper flyer, and so I didn't think anything of it. But about 5 minutes later, a guy texts me and says, "Hey, I think I saw your dog." He was working in like a soybean field, and the pictures came back to me, and they were these fuzzy pictures of him out off in the distance. They look kind of like those Yeti photos where people thought they spotted this mythical creature, and much like that mythical creature, at this point I was thinking, will I ever get him back? Will he remain this mythical being that, some urban folklore out in the Canal Fulton where the mother says the daughter, you better eat your vegetables or the Brubeck's going to come get you tonight. People are going to spot him off in the distance in the clearing. And at this point I had talked to a number of animal rescue people, and they were not giving me much hope. Animal rescue people aren't necessarily the most positive, happy, joyful people. I mean, I love animals, but and they said, you're doing it all wrong. Your flyer's wrong. You don't call his name, because at this point he's not going to recognize you. Don't even look him in the eyes. Don't even go near him. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit in a corner and hope he comes to me, in my house. And I thought, is this true? Is Brubeck becoming wild? He's the most unnatural instinct dog I've ever met. And, and I thought, I felt like a parent whose child was abducted. The abductor in this situation was Mother Nature. Was she reclaiming him? So day 4, day 5, I go out and I start at this farm, and I'm hot on the trail. I'm triangulating. I'm driving in circles. I'm, doing what I can. I'm pulling over and asking people, anybody I see. And of course, this day ends like all other days, where I just go back empty-handed. And right at the end of the day, I'd come back to Akron, and some guy calls who ran a repair shop, and they saw him. They tried to approach him. They tried to feed him, and he took off running again. He was very scared at this point. He wasn't socialized very well. I lived out in the country, and I never even put a leash on him at this point. He was kind of wild in that regard, where he sort of ran free on a lot of acres. So day 5, I go out to the repair shop. I talk to the guys working there, and at this point I started employing something that I read about that hunters do when they lose their hunting dogs. They will leave articles of clothing in the woods so the dogs can track their scent back. So I started leaving shirts everywhere I could. It became this weird striptease / scavenger hunt in Canal Fulton. My t-shirts are probably still in people's yards. I didn't think to go get those, and I left food out for him wherever I could, and I was really worried, and I also my family lives out in this area, so we had a caravan of people at this point by day 5. It was like 8 vehicles driving around, all of us driving in circles. This coordinated effort. I thought we have to find him. At this point, we have to find him. It's critical. Most of the time when people lose animals and lose their pets, it's usually a couple days and they get them back. And also, being that this is a suburban area, a rural area, a lot of animals get hit because people drive really fast on these roads. So at this point, every day I'd go home and post an update, and people were really so supportive on social media. It got hundreds of shares. People I didn't know were contacting me. They're adding me to different groups. There's a Summit County Lost and Found Pets group, which I still share information from. It's an amazing network of people, really is. So in that regard, there was still support that kept me going. So we're on day 6 at this point. Almost a week had passed, and this day there were no leads, completely quiet, no texts, no emails, no calls, and I feared the worst at this point. I mean, he was nowhere to be found. I thought maybe he's hit. I would call the police department every day in that area, the Canton Police Department, New Franklin Township, Canal Fulton, and nothing, no reports. And at this point, I was hoping that he was taken to the pound. I was hoping that someone had found him, but again, he would not come near anybody. He was scared at this point. I thought, how is he even eating? How is he even drinking? It's been almost a whole week. And so the day was just about rounded up. The day was just about ending, and I did what I normally do, and I went to an area where there's a park and there's a hill, and I looked off into this little valley you could see for a couple miles, and I'm like, screw those animal rights people. I'm yelling his name, I'm screaming it. I don't care at this point. Yelled off into the valley and nothing, and I was just hoping, he's got to be somewhere, He'd only went not more than a mile or two from where he was before each day. So people would tell me throughout the week, oh, he'll find his way home, like this is Homeward Bound or something. I'm like, no, he does not have instincts like a normal dog. He's running in just random patterns. Like if I were to put it on a map, it would just look like nothing, randomness. So I was just about ready to call it a day. The balloon was deflated near the floor, and I get a text from somebody saying, is this your dog? Did you see the picture? And I said, there's no picture. Someone pranking me, someone messing with me here, She said, well, I sent it to Facebook, but we're not friends. It's in your other folder, which is a thing with Facebook. If you send someone a message, it goes into a different folder, and I couldn't access it with the app on my phone, so I was trying to get on my browser to get on Facebook, and I was out in the woods, and I had really no signal, and I was so frustrated, and I couldn't get on quick enough. So I'm running to the parking lot toward my car. I saw the picture. Someone had sent me a couple pictures of a dog in a car. It looked obviously distressed, scrawny, tongue hanging out, and I thought, that kind of looks like him, but I don't know. Did I forget what he looked like? Has it been so long? And I was 95% sure, but I held on to that 5% of doubt because I did not want to get my hopes up. I called the girl who messaged me, and someone else had picked up the dog that we thought was him. To this point, and so I was waiting to get this lady's number, and I called her, and she works at a dental office in Canton. So he'd went 10 miles that last day. And she said, yeah, he was whimpering and crying in the bushes. We thought he was hurt, but that's the sound he makes. It's like, that's his bark, is this whimpering, crying noise. And you can't help but have your heart melt when he does that. It's very, he's a very sweet dog. And so she said she opened the door, and he jumped right in. So at this point, he was like, okay, I'm ready to make contact with humans. I'm hungry. I need to get indoors. I need a warm bed tonight. So, and I still wasn't sure if it was him yet, and so as we're driving out there, she lived pretty far, so it's like a 40-minute drive. As we're driving out there, I was so anxious, I wanted to speed. I wanted to go as fast as I could, and she kept calling me. She said, are you here yet? He peed on my carpet. I tried to put him outside, and he dug a hole in the yard, and I put him on a tie out, and he chewed that off. Like, he was very distressed, you know. And so I got there, and it was him. So he was very happy to see me. I was very happy to see him, and I'll never forget this girl. She was, you know, it was a small act to her probably, but it meant the world to me. And I seriously believe if it wasn't for social media, I never would have gotten him back, or it would have taken me a lot longer. She found him, posted a picture. Someone that didn't even know her saw the picture, and there was like 3 or 4 circles removed from my friends list on Facebook and my circle of social media friends. And it was amazing how he was so far from where his home was, and I found him, you know, and I got him back, and I couldn't believe it. So I will never look at social media the same way again. So it was, and I'll never forget this girl. And I still, you know, she contacts me every once in a while to see how Brubeck's doing. And so, yeah, so all those days where I was out there looking for him, and I feel like I was all alone. You know, these hundreds of people on social media were there with me that whole time. So thank you.